Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Hope you enjoyed the holidays. My name is Dennis Shao, organizer of Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup. We also have another group represented here today, San Francisco Content Strategy and Content Marketing. So we kind of have a monopoly on the Bay Area, but of course, a lot of you are outside the Bay Area. That's the great thing about these Zoom meetups. Today, we're just starting 2023, as we all know. So this is a great topic. Dale Bertrand from Fire & Spark is going to talk about how great brands will scale SEO in 2023. So we're going to get started with the year, and then you can hopefully apply some of what Dale is going to share throughout the year. So Dale, thanks for joining, and take it away.
Well, thank you, Dennis. Thank you guys for coming. I love talking about SEO. I love talking about content. I want to quickly tell you guys about my journey with SEO. I started out a technical guy. I was optimizing websites for organic traffic. Then I was doing a lot of link building. I was pretty much a link building guy. I ran a publishing based publishing company selling ads on the websites that we own. I sold that in 2015, and then started focusing on more content-based SEO, which is where I'm at now. And what we found is there are three parts of SEO: the technical, and then authority building, which used to be all about link building, and then content. We don't do the technical piece anymore because unless your website's really broken, it's not really going to help. You're not going to double your traffic that way. We mostly focus on content, but we also have a authority first approach towards authority, building authority for websites too. So mostly what we're talking about today is content, but the presentation today, the reason why the presentation today is special is because another conference asked me to interview a bunch of SEO leaders at big brands. These are brands like Kraft and HP and IBM, HubSpot, Citizen Watch, and understand what they're doing, what's working for them, and where they're going to invest their resources in 2023. So they introduced me to a bunch of people, and I also had some friends to talk to, and I learned a ton talking to them. And what those conversations boiled down to was 5 insights, 5 strategies. These are areas that they're investing in 2023 that I think are just like, really the right place to be. So that's what the presentation is today. That's what we're going to talk about. Quickly about me as I dive into it here. So like I told you, I have a technical background, and I've really been at the intersection of technology and marketing my entire career. I studied AI in grad school, built a supercomputer for the NSA. Now I run Fire & Spark. Fire & Spark is an SEO content agency where we do SEO focused content strategy, and we help to build the content and optimize websites and all of that good stuff. And we worked with a bunch of clients, some of which you may have heard of. Now I'm going to get into scaling SEO content. So these are the leaders that I talked to. Their names are not on here, so all you'll see is like they're just a good-looking bunch. But I didn't want to associate like the exact strategies with the company that I learned it from. So these are the people that I talked to. They're marketing leaders at big brands. I mentioned the big brands before. AARP is one that I didn't mention before. But these are the folks that I had conversations with. Now, when I was talking to them, I learned about 5 specific opportunities that they are excited about for 2023. And I'm going to reveal, this is the big reveal, and then I'm going to go into the detail. But the first one is staying ahead of the algorithm. And I'm actually going to talk about that first in a second, so I'll dive into it. Next one is deploying AI tools. What's funny about this is like AI got big in the last few weeks, but these guys have been looking at AI for much longer than that. And then optimizing existing content. What this is really about is opportunities to optimize your existing content to generate new traffic rather than thinking about what new content should we create. And the next one is optimizing for post-COVID search behavior. And then the last one is optimizing for new search features. Now, this is where I feel like salesy, right? There's a bonus opportunity at the end of this presentation that I actually added yesterday and today, which I think is also good. So we'll talk about that too. So getting into staying ahead of the algorithm, the first thing I want folks to understand is what I call dual SEO strategy. So when I was talking to these folks, what we were really geeking out on is the fact that SEO used to be what I would call bottom-up. Bottom-up SEO is when you're looking at the signals you want Google to see. You want Google to see a technically correct website. You want Google to see keywords in your title tags. You want Google to see backlinks. So when we were doing SEO, like old school SEO, we were really focused on bottom up. Like, how do we make those signals so that we can get rankings? Now, top-down SEO strategy is when you're starting from your overall brand strategy, your overall marketing strategy. So you're looking at your messaging, your offer, your right fit customer that you're going after. And then you're taking that strategy that will translate into a content marketing strategy and a bunch of other channels that you might be on, whether you're doing events or paid advertising and all of that. And then all of that trickles down to, well, what am I doing for content and backlinks and organic optimization? That would be a top-down approach to SEO. And what we need to be doing in 2023 is really both at the same time. The big message here is that we can't afford to only do the bottom up where we're just looking at these signals. In order for SEO to work, it needs to be integrated with a larger marketing strategy, because we all know that SEO as a discipline nowadays requires coordination with your content resources, your in-house subject matter experts, your PR team. You want to make sure that you're optimizing multi-channel with your paid advertising team and PPC folks and all that sort of thing. So I want to make sure that when we're thinking about SEO, we're thinking about both at the same time. Now, another thing that's important, this is when we're staying ahead of the algorithm, is that Google's algorithm used to be rules-based. And what I mean by rules-based is you can think about the original PageRank algorithm. That was the original algorithm for Google, where Google was looking at websites and web pages and the links that were pointing to those websites and web pages. And if you had authoritative websites pointing to your content or your website, that means you're authoritative and you should rank well too. That's how the original rules-based Google algorithm worked. But now Google's algorithm is different. Google's algorithm is AI-based. And what that means is that instead of us as marketers understanding the rules, and we call those rules SEO best practices in order to get rankings, we need to understand how the AI is trained, because AI search engines work differently. The way they work is Google is training the algorithm, and the algorithm is basically generating some rules that are a black box. We don't know exactly what they are, but then those rules are what's generating our rankings. So if we can understand things like Google's algorithm, how it's trained, the way it's trained is on like a data set of websites that humans are basically grading. And then also the algorithm is trained based on watching our search behavior. So if we type in a particular query and a lot of people click on this link, it must be what people are looking for when they're typing in that query. So by using Google, we're training the algorithm. So if we understand, the AI is trained by humans. Some of them work for Google, some of them are just doing Google searches. Then that helps us to write our SEO content. Now I'm going to give you a quick example here. I went to Google and I made up a query, and the query was, what is go time? And I put the query in quotes, because if you put a query in quotes to Google, it turns off Google's AI. And what Google does is it starts to work like the very first version of Google, where what it was doing was just looking for these words on a page. So when I typed in what is go time, you can see on the screen here, it showed what Google gave us was 2 pages that have what is go time in the title and on the page, because what Google's doing here is just looking for these words on the page. Now, if I type this same query into Google without the quotes, it's going to trigger Google's AI. So we get different results on the page. Now what we get is Google's AI is trying to figure out, what is Dale actually looking for? And Google's AI is predicting maybe Dale is looking for this software called GoTime that people use to manage events. And then Google's also saying, well, maybe he's looking for the definition of GoTime in the Urban Dictionary. Or maybe Dale's he's asking the question, where did GoTime come from? Or the question, what is the meaning of do time? Which means Google's thinking maybe Dale misspelled do as go. Or it's thinking maybe Dale was asking the question, what does go back in time mean? So we can see the difference here, night and day difference between old school Google looking for the words on the page and the new Google AI trying to interpret the intention behind the query and give a variety of different results that might match the intent that Google's AI is predicting. Does this make sense to you guys? Because it's important. All right. So now I'm going to talk about post-COVID search behavior, and I'm going to tell a little story that has to do with my little daughter. She's 10 years old. So I don't know if any of you guys have kids, but my daughter loves American Girl dolls. They're expensive, and they have these freaky videos where like dolls are talking, but you're learning things like how to be a good friend and things like that. What I learned about American Girl dolls is they're expensive, and if you want to buy one for your daughter, you have to choose between buying an American Girl doll and sending her to college. So during COVID, my daughter, it was her birthday. She wanted to go to the American Girl doll store, but we couldn't because the store was closed temporarily. So instead, we searched online, found a doll for her to buy. And then actually that store ended up closing during COVID, so we were never able to go. We did find that there was a used store in Boston for American Girl dolls. When COVID started to ease a little bit, we went on a road trip down to New York because there's an American Girl doll store in New York. And it turns out at this American Girl doll store in New York, you can make an appointment to have your doll's hairstyled sitting next to your daughter, and both of them are doing it at the same time. It's another way to rip money out of your wallet. But she and I had a great time down there. Now, you guys are asking me, what does this have to do with SEO? The reason why I'm telling you the story about my daughter and American Girl dolls and me taking her down to New York is that during this entire story of this saga to find an American Girl doll store that was open, buy my daughter a doll, and then get the doll's hair styled for like a ridiculous amount of money, we used Google, and we went to Google and we typed in the keyword American Girl. When I first typed in American Girl, my intent was to find the American Girl doll store in Boston to see if it was open. Then I was looking for the used American Girl doll store, and I typed in American Girl, and it was the used store that a friend of us had told us about. Then I typed in American Girl because I was looking to find another store not in Boston that we could go to. And then I was typing in American Girl to buy an American Girl doll online. And then finally I was typing in American Girl into Google because I was trying to make an appointment to have the doll's hairstyle. The point behind this story is that the intent behind all those different queries was different, even though they were always the same query. I was always typing in American Girl. And that's super important to realize that there is an intent behind the query. And some queries, like a query like shoes, that's really short and a little bit ambiguous, the query shoes has a lot of different intents behind it. You might be looking to buy sneakers or women's high heels or sandals or kids shoes. Those are all different intents. If I have a children's shoe store, then there's one intent that I care about, but I don't care about the other intents. So if I type in a different query into Google, like Nike Reds running shoes size 8, that's one very specific intent to buy a specific product. So it's important to understand when we're doing SEO, we are optimizing for intent, not necessarily keywords. Keywords and optimizing for keywords and doing keyword research is a necessary evil, but we need to go one step farther and figure out what is the intent behind that keyword that we actually care about, especially when we're optimizing for keywords that have multiple intents. Now, some more quick examples here. These are just generic, high-level types of intents. You could imagine the commercial intent for the keyword American Girl ski outfit. I'm looking to buy a product. Or informational kit intent, if I type in the keyword, when was Bitty Baby born? And Bitty Baby is a type of American Girl doll. Or navigational intent, if I type in American Girl store party reservations, I'm really looking to find that reservations page. I'm just trying to navigate there. So I'll give you guys an example. I worked with a client who they built 3D printers. And they came to me and they said, hey, Dale, we want you to help us optimize and rank for 2 keywords, 3D printing and 3D printer. What I helped them understand is that the intent behind those 2 keywords is actually very different. When somebody types in 3D printing, they're looking for a service. They're looking in a local service probably to print a model for them. Maybe they're an architecture company. They just did a design and they want to print a model to show to their client. They're looking for a service when they type in 3D printing. When they type in 3D printer, the primary intent behind that is to buy a product, to buy a desktop machine or a larger machine, something like that. So I needed to show this to my client by showing them the search results because Google knows what people are searching for. and then help them understand that they really wanted to optimize for 3D printer keywords, not 3D printing keywords. Now, what this all boils down to is that customer intimacy matters. And what I mean by that is when you're optimizing for Google's AI knows your customers better than you do. And also, Google's AI knows the intent behind the searches better than you do. So Google's AI is going to match your customer searches with the right content, and they're going to match it with your content if you're writing the right content. So the way you write the right content, and I'm sorry, I'm getting totally jumbled with the word right here, but the way you write the right content is by knowing your customer well. So as marketers, and this is a trap that a lot of people fall into, like if you're not talking to your customers, marketers aren't always on the phone with customers. You don't do sales, but you need to find a way where you're talking to customers, or you're talking to your salespeople, or you're visiting online chat rooms and forums where your customers hang out, so you can understand the questions that your customers are asking when they're making buying decisions for a product or a service like yours. This is hugely important because Google does understand what they're looking for, and Google understands the intent behind these queries. If you don't, then you're not going to write the right content. And moving on. Well, how is this for everybody? Because I'm going to move on to AI. All right, good. So now moving on to AI tools. AI tools, as you know, when I built the first version of this presentation, AI wasn't everywhere. But right now AI is everywhere. But SEO tools are evolving. Old school SEO tools would collect search data, like keyword data. And they would have hard-coded workflows within the tools, limited idea generation, predefined functionality, but new AI-based tools can extract insights from the data. They can learn as they work on your website and everybody else's website. So they're making better predictions for keywords and optimizations and content you should be creating. And they have adaptive workflows. One of the SEO tools that really blew me away is a tool that when I sit down to write a piece of content, it'll help me optimize the content I'm writing in the tool. But sometimes this AI tool tells me, Dale, you should not be writing this piece of content. You should be optimizing this other piece of content on your site right now, because that's the biggest opportunity for you to grow organic traffic. So AI tools or AI SEO tools are just smarter in that way. And then also they can give you creative assistance. So this is the generative AI that you guys may have seen, like ChatGPT and DALL-E and Midjourney. Like there are a number of tools out there that can help with creativity. I've been using a lot of them. So I have right now, and I'll just tell you guys, like the state of generative AI right now, especially for generating content, is it's not working if you don't understand the subject matter. But generative AI in the hands of a subject matter expert that does understand the subject matter really well is hugely potent. I spoke to a friend of mine who's a subject matter expert in a pretty niche area of marketing. He does a lot of blogging in his niche area. That's how he does his consulting and runs his consulting company. I spoke to him last night about AI tools for writing, and he said the tools he uses makes him about 2 or 3 times as productive. At the end of the day, he spends as much time writing as he always has, but he generates twice as much content. And for him, the reason why it's working is because he's an expert in the area. So when the tool F's up or leads him in the wrong direction, he can just correct it and keep going. If he was not an expert in the subject matter, then the AI is just not good enough yet to just write a blog post for you. So that's super important. And then the other thing about AI tools is that the outputs get better. With ChatGPT, you're having a conversation with the tool and it's getting smarter as you correct its mistakes. But other tools that might be generating ad creative or title tags or keywords, they're getting smarter based on all of the people that are using it, not just you. So there's a huge opportunity. Like right now, we're very early with AI SEO tools, but what's going to happen is some of the tools are going to break out. And the tools that break out are going to have more users. And because they have more users, they're going to have more data. And because they have more data, they're going to get smarter and they're going to be the better tools. So it's kind of, so I'm looking for that to happen. That's what I'm looking for with the SEO tools that are just breaking into the market now. Now, one example I'll give you is TwinWord. I really like TwinWord because it's a smart keyword tool. It impressed me when I first used it. When I first used it, I typed in a keyword, I think it was like SEO agency, because I run an SEO agency. And I had it give me a bunch of keywords. It gave me a bunch of keywords and it categorized them one of the categories it gave me was local keywords. And when you think about it, it's like, okay, it's an AI tool, and it saw a keyword like Boston SEO agency. It saw another one like Chicago SEO agency. That makes a lot of sense. Those are local SEO tools. And it was showing me a lot of those. But what I was impressed by was it showed me another keyword, which was small business SEO agency. And it labeled that keyword as a local keyword. And when I thought about it, I was like, that makes sense, because a small business would be looking for a local agency rather than a national agency. So this this tool impressed me because it was a little smarter than the tools that I had traditionally been using. And they're only going to get smarter as more people use them and they have access to more data. Another tool that impressed me was Surfer SEO. This is one of many, many, editing tools out there that will help you to write SEO optimized content pieces. But the thing that impressed me was this was the tool that when I sat down to write a blog article, it said, no, Dale, don't write this article today. Optimize this other article on your site. That's a bigger opportunity for you to generate traffic today. And I was like, holy shit, I've never had a tool tell me something like that. So for the advice that I have for you, and I do a whole like SEO tools workshop if you guys are ever interested in that content. But the advice I have for you today, just kind of concisely, is to look at your workflows. What I have up here is a typical workflow for generating and publishing an SEO article. And for every individual step of the workflow, like identifying the topic or doing the keyword research or hitting the publish button, there is an AI-enabled new tool out there that you can find for that piece of your workflow. So what I'm recommending and what I'm doing with my agency and my work is looking at every step of this workflow and trying 2 or 3 different tools to figure out which one will work for me. Half of the tools you try just aren't going to work for you, or maybe they're just not ready because all these tools are new. So many of them are rough around the edges. But when you find a tool that works for you, it's going to double your productivity in that area. And that's just like, I don't know what the word is for it. Like, that's so compelling that it's hard to really ignore that opportunity. So now I'm going to talk about optimizing existing content. So the other opportunity in 2023 we came up with is optimizing existing content, in many cases, instead of creating new content. And what's going on here is everybody's like, hey, what SEO content should I create? And sometimes I'm like, you've got all this existing content. Why aren't you optimizing that? And let me show you some of the things we're doing. So one is just updating old content. And the trick here is like, update it to modernize it, put the year in the title so it gets more clicks. But there's a lot of opportunities. And we like to start with content that's already doing well. Maybe it has some traffic or it has a lot of traffic, to update it so it could do even better. And then what we're showing here is just an example of consolidating mid-performing content. And the case study for this, the analytics that I'm showing here is from Baremetrics. And what they did was they took 4 articles that were getting some traffic, but not a ton, combined them into an authoritative resource on the topic, and then the aggregate traffic doubled because they were able to build an authoritative resource on the topic. And when you think about it, that authoritative resource on the topic is going to have better engagement metrics that Google's going to see. It's going to rank for more keywords because it's going to have more content in it. And it's going to attract more natural backlinks because it's more useful than the original articles were. Now, another trick is to add internal links. Internal links are always a good thing because they help draw people into the site. They help spread authority around the site. They make content generally more useful. So adding internal linking is always a good thing. Another thing we like to do is I'll take an article that's already performing, like getting some traffic, and I'll put a useful, helpful diagram or video that might already exist on the site right at the top, or in this case, like under one paragraph down. And what this will do is it'll improve the engagement metrics to this piece of content. And if this piece of content is already getting traffic, Google's going to see an improvement in engagement metrics, and the rankings are going to improve. But I love, like, this is a really good example here. I'm just a junkie when it comes to visuals that improve engagement because it helps out with SEO. And then another thing is Q&A content. We're huge on Q&A content on the projects that we work on. What we'll do when we're working on a new project is we'll put together a spreadsheet with purchase intent questions. So sizing my ski boots, not cleaning my skis, because one of those is purchase intent, the other one is not. And we'll answer a lot of purchase intent questions with one paragraph answers, like maybe 50 of them. And we'll put some of them on a new FAQ on the website. This is an FAQ that is not for customer service, it's for customer acquisition. So it's separate from your typical FAQ. And then with some of the other questions that we decide not to put on the FAQ, we'll put them at the bottom of pretty much every page on the site. So at the bottom of product pages, at the bottom of category pages, at the bottom of service pages, we'll put them on SEO landing pages, because Google loves Q&A content. Q&A content is going to rank for featured snippets. It's going to rank for people also ask box, and you'll also get the web rankings. So we're big on Q&A content, but it's got to be purchase intent. I don't want to help people to clean the skis they already bought. And then adding schema markup. There's so many different types of schema. You want to stick to the schema that Google actually recognizes, like product schema, events, job listings. There's a list of like 20 or 30 of them that Google actually, this is recipes that I'm showing here. But if you have the opportunity to add schema and one of the 20 or 30 that Google actually recognizes, then you want to add it to your site. So now I'm going to talk about optimizing for new features. What this is about is that Google's search results pages are getting crowded. So we've all noticed like more ads, more maps, more people also ask, more images, videos, more of everything. And what this is doing is it's pushing down the web results that we're optimizing for when we're doing SEO. So we want to make sure that we're optimizing for the right type of result. There's two ways to look at this. One is you take the keywords that you want to rank for, type them into Google and see what types of results Google's showing so that you can create the right type of content. Does it need to be a video or an article or a Q&A content, something like that? Another thing is that you might want to avoid the keywords that you can't rank for because you can't create that type of content. I'll give you an example. Like we worked with a client that was doing medical weight loss. They were a telehealth medical weight loss clinic, so they did not have retail locations. When I typed in medical weight loss into Google, Google was showing up as a map listing of clinics that all had locations, but my client did not have locations. So we needed to go after a different type of query, like something related to medical weight loss drugs or medical weight loss prescriptions or something like that. That was just a better fit because it was showing the web results that we were going to generate as a part of that project. Then it's also featured snippets. So I already talked about Q&A style content. We love to create Q&A style content, put it on all types of pages. That'll help us get featured snippets. But also you guys may be aware of the idea of putting purchase intent questions as H2s in articles and things like that, and then answering those questions with a concise one paragraph answer that Google can put onto the page. I'm just as an aside, I already talked about AI and ChatGPT. I'm really curious how Google is going to handle this going forward because we want answers. We don't want Google to hand us the way I think about search right now is Google will hand us a research project sometimes where we have to click on all these links and find the answer that we want. But ChatGPT is training us to that it'll just give us the answer confidently, even though sometimes it's wrong. So I'm curious how Google's going to handle that. But we as content writers need to help Google see the questions that are answered by our content by either building Q&A style content or putting those questions in the H2s, and then giving Google a concise answer that Google can use in the form of like a 2 or 3 sentence paragraph that Google can steal. And then also like there's other types of featured snippets you guys may have seen, like bulleted lists or step-by-step, and that also works great as long as you associate it very easily with the question. And then map packs, like I think like sometimes we're doing local SEO where we can easily, well, not that we can easily, but it makes sense to optimize for the map pack because we've got a local business and we're optimizing a Google My Business profile. Other times we're not. Like we might have a project or a business that doesn't have any retail locations, and we don't have the opportunity to do local SEO with a Google My Business profile account. So we might be building out location pages or something like that. But we need to be careful because if we're optimizing for keywords that Google thinks are local searches, Google's going to show the map, but we don't have the opportunity to get into the map because we don't have retail locations. So you just have to know what type of results you're optimizing for when it comes to local queries, depending on whether you actually have local locations or not. And then I've already talked about FAQs, but Google is putting people also ask boxes, and I recommend that everybody, regardless of the type of business you have, come up with a list of purchase intent. And this is the real key. Like the example I gave, I was on the phone with somebody yesterday and they sell horse stuff, like horse saddles. And I was telling him, you want to optimize for questions like, how do I size my horse, or how do I choose the right size for my saddle? Because that is a purchase intent question compared to how do I shine my saddle or wash my saddle or something like that, which is not a purchase intent question, but that's really the key. And now I'm into the bonus. I went through that really quickly because I wanted to get to the bonus content here. But well, I guess we'll stop here for a second. You guys feel free to unmute yourselves since we have a little bit of time. You have any questions with what I already talked about? Because I went through it quickly because I wanted to cover all of them.
So Dale, we have a question from Elise, which I'll read out. She's looking for some decent and inexpensive SEO keyword research tools. She says that SEMrush is pricey. Some of her clients won't pay for the research, so she's going to do it herself.
Yeah, I'm totally in bed with SEMrush because I do their webinars, so I'm not allowed to say anything bad. And they sent to me this awesome sweatshirt that I love. So, so I like SEMrush, but it is expensive. We pay them a ridiculous amount of money because they pay per person, and we're an SEO agency. But Moz is cheaper. TwinWord is cheaper. Trying to think. Keywords.io is cheaper. There's so many of them. What I would do if I were you is I would Google AI keyword tools, because there's so many new ones, and some of them are free because they're new and they're just trying to get people to use them. So that's the direction I would go. But what you're not going, like what you're going to get with a snazzy new AI keyword tool is features like I talked about, where it'll automatically categorize keywords, and some are better at it than others. But an expensive tool like SEMrush, the reason why it's worth it for an agency is because they have a much bigger, like a huge database of keywords that they've been, like millions and millions of keywords that they've been collecting for more than a decade now. So that's actually a big advantage for a company like WordStream or SEMrush or Ahrefs compared to one of these new AI tools. But you'll probably be able to find free or very cheap AI keyword tools, and that's what I would do. Any other questions, Dennis?
I'm just scrolling through. Actually, I just thought of one as you were answering. It was like, give us the broad picture, the big picture view. How important is keyword research these days anyway with the AI in the Google search engine? Is it as important as it used to be?
It is. Like, we're stuck with keywords, but you need to optimize for the intent, not the keyword. And then the other thing that's important when you're doing keyword research is typically you're coming up with a list of keywords and you're prioritizing them based on search intent, search volume, relevance, and competition. But what people usually forget is to type the keyword that you want to optimize for into Google to see what Google thinks the intent is by reading the results on the page. And then also type the keyword into Google so you can see what type of results Google's showing. Because Google, like I said, Google, you just have to assume that Google knows better than you do what the intent behind the keyword is. So people often skip that step.
No other questions, so why don't we get on with the bonus?
All right, bonus. Because, oh, Christelle, did you have a question? I saw you unmuted.
I do. How would you recommend putting competitors, using competitor names as keywords?
It depends. So one way to do it is to like write about your competitors. That's considered a aggressive strategy that not every brand wants to do because it's not a good look for every brand. Also, the other thing about writing about your competitors is that they're going to rank, like it's likely that they're going to rank above you, because when people type in a branded keyword, they're looking for that brand. They're not looking for you. But the other case is that You could write reviews of a competitor, and people don't want to click on the brand. They want an honest review. So you might be in a position where you could do that. If you're a direct competitor, people might not believe it. But what we, and I'm about to, I think I'm about to show an example of this. What is working really well for us, and this is what I recommend, is comparison content. So if you're brand X and you've got a competitor brand Y, I would write an article X versus Y. People will click on that. And then you give an honest case, and at the end, a call to action that puts you in a favorable light. And then when you're building that, that comparison, the whole point is to position yourself in a favorable way against your competition. So the answer is yes, but I would do it as either reviews or comparison content. So then moving on, and I think this is relevant to your question, Crystal. So I've been thinking a lot about like conversion for SEO. So a lot of times when people are doing SEO, they're doing SEO for rankings or traffic. Rankings and traffic are vanity. I literally have a mortgage. Rankings and traffic are not going to pay my mortgage. What's going to pay my mortgage is conversions that put revenue and sales in my pocket. So if you're looking to grow your business, if you're looking to have an impact on your clients, like you've got to be focused on revenue at some point, and that's all about SEO for conversion. So when I'm thinking about conversion SEO or SEO content that I would create for conversion, the way I do it is I'm first thinking about search intent, which has to do with keywords, but it's really what intent behind those keywords am I optimizing for? I'm going to give you an example of an intent like, let's say somebody who's looking for a weight loss solution and they're open to medical weight loss, not just like nutrition or exercise. If that was the intent that I decided I want to go after, because that's the type of company that I run, the next thing that I would do is think about the conversion points. Now, I'm saying something a little different here, where instead of building the content and then adding calls to action to it, I'm thinking about the conversion first, because the conversion needs to be aligned with the intent. So somebody who's online looking for medical weight loss, they're open to, but what it means is they're open to like medication for weight loss. They're typing something like medical weight loss drugs or medical weight loss prescription into Google. What type of conversion could we imagine for them? And I can tell you, I could imagine they might be interested in pricing. So maybe that's like a pricing sheet. They might be interested in talking to a doctor about it. So that would be a call to action, like, schedule a consultation with a doctor. They might be interested in a downloadable guide about comparing all of the different drugs that they might be looking for. They might be interested in a downloadable that gives them information about different companies that might have different, I'm trying to think of the word here, different plans to do medical weight loss. Because the company we worked with, it was a combination of a medical weight loss drug and a supportive group and, virtual meetings with a doctor, once a month sort of thing. So I want to make sure that I nail down the conversion points, multiple conversion points that are going to be in my content before I start thinking about the type of content I'm going to create and before I start writing. Because what the content is about is bridging the gap between the intent and the conversion points that I'm going to put into the article. Does that make sense? Because that's the critical point here. And then once we've got the intent nailed down and we've decided, I would say 3 or 4 conversion points that we're going to have in the article, that's when we decide what type of content are we going to create. We're moving on to what is this on-page content. Now, it could be FAQ, it could be an article. I'm not favoring articles nowadays because there's better ways to do it. It could be conversion. We talked about comparison content. It might be a templated page. It might be a local page. Like, there's so many different types of content we could create, but we want it to be the right type of content to bridge the gap. Now, with the project that I'm talking about, bridging the gap between the search intent of medical weight loss and then the conversion of, let's say, like, talk to a specialist, talk to a doctor, then we decided that we were going to build out like a new FAQ on the client's website. So that's the type of content. And then we would start writing the content. And when we're building the content, we want to make sure that it's driving towards it's driving people who are interested, who have this intent that have landed on this page, the content is, and the type of content is driving them towards the conversions, the calls to action that we just thought of. And another thing I should say about this calls to action before we choose the content type and before we write the content is that we also want to think about what is the messaging in the content, the CTA, and then what is the offer in the CTA. So the example I gave you, the messaging might be something like talk to a medical weight loss specialist. And then the offer would be like a consultation by phone. But we want to make sure we nail that down before we start working on the content. And then once we've created the content, we publish it, then we're thinking about off-page opportunities. Those are things like, is there any quick promotion that we could do that might get some backlinks to it? Are there any other channels that this content would be useful for? A lot of times we're creating SEO content, but it would be useful for email marketing or PPC or content partnerships. So when we dream up the type of content that we want to create, is there a partnership, a relationship that we have where we can get them to work with us on this piece of content that would add value because it would add audience or it would make the content more useful or something like that? So that's the off-page piece. Now, I'm going to dive into each one of these quickly with a little more detail, but I'm curious if there are any questions related to what I just said. Feel free to unmute yourself. For some reason, I don't see the chat. Dennis, you'll have to let me know if there's anything in the chat because I don't see it for some reason.
There's no questions or comments about the bonus yet.
I'll keep going. So
Yep.
I told you the first step, I'm going to turn this into a 1, 2, 3, but the first step is like search intent. So when we're doing search intent, we're researching keywords, but specifically we need to understand the intents behind the keywords so we can choose one. And we choose the one that is most likely to convert. When we choose an intent, we really want to pick off the people who are ready to buy because remember, this is conversion focused SEO content. It's one thing to create SEO content that's going to get rankings or it's going to get traffic, but what we're specifically talking about here is the most valuable SEO content, the SEO content that's going to convert. So we need to choose an intent that is most likely to convert. And it's most likely to convert because they're ready to buy and they're ready to buy something. They're ready to buy what we have, the product or service that we have. So when we're thinking about this, we want to target searches where they're ready to make a purchase decision. They're typing in purchase intent keywords or purchase intent questions. We want to identify content gaps, which are really intent gaps, but I don't like to say it that way. So it's like based on the content we already have, what intents are we not already covering that would be valuable? And then we want to think about, some of you have more transactional purchases versus high consideration purchases. What I mean by that is if you're selling Huggies diapers, that's pretty transactional. Because if I go to Google with the intent to buy diapers for my baby, I know what I want. I'm just trying to figure out where I'm going to buy it. And if I find the right product at the right price, I'm going to hit the buy button. So you're going to look for, you're going to optimize differently. Like your calls to action are going to be different and the intents you go after are going to be different. And the type of content you're going to create is going to be different for a transactional sale. But if it's a high consideration sale, that's something like an industrial water filter, where I'm going to do a lot of research, multiple visits to your website before I ever, have a call with you. And I'm going to look at competitors. I'm going to do some independent research to understand everything there is to understand about an industrial water filter before I even have my first conversation with you. So if it's a high consideration purchase that you're going after, then that's going to be different types of content that you're going to create to answer try to answer all the questions that your customers are asking when they're making the decision around this high consideration purchase. So you really want to understand if you're more transactional or high consideration with the type of content that you're going after. Transactional purchases, your conversion strategy is really one and done. They land on the site, they see what they want, you give them some information and they convert. And then the high consideration, you're creating a lot of different types of content because they're going to visit your website multiple times. Now with conversion points, when you're trying to figure out your conversion points, you want to craft multiple conversion points. Remember, this is before you figure out what type of content you're going to create and before you write the content, and they have to be aligned with the search intent. So what would be catnip for me as the buyer with this particular search intent that we've identified that we're going to go after? And then we want to choose the CTAs, the conversion points, And the messaging, it could be downloading a PDF, like we said, or a call with a clinician, and craft the messaging and what the offer is going to be for multiple CTAs before you choose the type of content and before you write the copy for the content. So you want to make sure, and really the key to it is that the calls to action that you choose are aligned with the search intent. They can be links to product pages and service pages on your website. Those are conversion points on SEO landing pages. And you want to choose multiple, like I said, and then you want to figure out like the placements. Like sometimes you're putting calls to action in your header, in the middle of an article, or at the end, or you're putting them next to Q&A. And then you also, like I said, the messaging and the offers. This is what you want to be thinking about when you're thinking about CTAs up front. And then when you're thinking about the content itself, you want to choose the right type. And I talked about a number of types: Q&A content, SEO landing page, an article, a product-focused article, a comparison article, things like that. And then you want to make sure, oops, sorry about that, I went off page. And then you want to make sure that you're crafting copy that guides your visitors to the conversion points that you've decided on up front. So what's key here is to leverage the in-house expertise of your organization. Your in-house expertise is really going to help, obviously, when you're creating content right for your persona. So it really depends on what you're selling, but you may have multiple personas. A good example here is we have a client that creates a product. The product is a screen, but it's a portable screen so that you can have a second screen with your portable laptop. So it's small and it attaches to your laptop. One of their personas is somebody using this portable screen for teaching. So they're going after teachers. If you're creating content, and the intent in this case would be a teacher typing in portable laptop screen for classrooms or something like that. The intent is to find a portable screen for teaching. And then when you're crafting the content, you want to make sure the content is really geared towards talking about using these monitors for teaching. And so you're writing for that persona, and your calls to action are geared towards that persona. And when you're writing the messaging related to the calls to action, it's about, like, the messaging might be, it might be a link to a comparison grid or something with some buy buttons in it, and the messaging would say, choosing the right portable monitor for classrooms or something. But it's really honed in on that persona. And then when you have that persona, what are their pain points? You want to make sure that you're writing about the pain points that a teacher might have when it comes to finding a portable monitor, or the pain points that the portable monitor is to resolve, like the teacher's doing virtual teaching for the first time, or the teacher has a laptop in the front of the room and wants the students to be able to see the teacher's screen on the back of the teacher's laptop, something like that. And then also you're thinking about Q&A content, purchase intent questions that are relevant, and you're looking at the content you already have to figure out what can be repurposed. We like to repurpose videos, diagrams, and then write like an article around it or build content around it. And then make sure you have multiple conversion points. And then last thing here is off-page opportunities. So you want to build content that'll attract the natural links. And then also it'll work well on other channels, like I talked about, email, PPC, and then content partnerships. So that's what, and syndication is what we were talking about. We'll have one more minute here. Oh, well, I have some examples, but I want to make sure you guys know that you can email me or you could text this or whatever, but we do have a guide. It's the Authority First Resources Strategies Guide, which talks about content, and then the other half of our strategy, which I didn't get to today, because today I'm only talking about content, but the other half of our strategy is building authority, because not only do you want to have the right content, which would be SEO content that ranks and it informs your customers and it converts, but you want to build authority and trust with Google so that content can actually rank. So that's what this authority content guide is about. We should probably stop here. If we had more time, I would go through some specific examples of specific SEO content that we've written. You can email me. I can send you a list of those examples. This is my email here, and I can send you the authority guide too, so you can see the second half of our strategy.
Great presentation. Thanks, Dale. I think we have time for one question. Does anyone have a question? Maybe, oh, no.
I have a question. Dave, can you talk about the feedback loop that we could use to learn and optimize this framework?
Yeah, so what that gets into is like measuring performance. So when you're creating content and building authority, once you've gotten into it, you'll have a bunch of content. You'll have done a bunch of stuff that I'm talking about here. And what's important is that you're looking at performance metrics. Early in the project, we look at the number of keywords that a piece of content is ranking for and whether it's getting any rankings whatsoever. And then later on, we're looking at traffic, organic traffic to the piece of content. And then after that, we're looking for conversions and revenue generated by that piece of content. But that's what we're looking at. And what I would recommend is you have a monthly rhythm of looking at those metrics for all the content that you've created using this strategy and all the content that you've optimized using these strategies. And you'll figure out what's working and double down on what's working.
Is there anything that we have to do to instrument gathering of that data, or?
Yeah, I mean, what it means is like a fully functioning Google Analytics account and a Search Console account.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm afraid that's all the time we have. So Dale, thanks for a great presentation. You said you couldn't see the chat, so just know that there's a lot of compliments and thanks to you in the chat from our attendees.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you at the next Zoom meetup.
Cool. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Dave.